You'll never find out. That's what she laughed, thinking she was clever, thinking she was untouchable. I can still hear her voice, that smug little chuckle, like betrayal was some private joke between her and the man she was sneaking off to see. The thing about laughter, though, is it lingers. It echoes in your head long after the sound is gone. And her laughter didn't just echo, it carved something into me, something cold, something sharp. Because once you hear the person you love mocking you behind your back, you can never unhear it. For months she made me feel like I was imagining things. You're paranoid, you work too much. That's why you're so suspicious. I'd never do that to you. The classics. She had an answer for everything, polished and rehearsed, always delivered with those wide, innocent eyes. And part of me wanted to believe her. God knows I wanted to believe her. But lies are like cracks in a windshield. They start small, then spread until the whole thing is shattered. It started with her phone. She used to leave it lying around all the time, face up, open. Then suddenly it was glued to her. Even in the bathroom, even when she showered, notifications off, passwords changed. When I asked why, she rolled her eyes. Privacy isn't a crime, you know. Stop acting like a cop. Then there were the late nights. She'd claim she was staying late at work, but I'd drive past her office, and the parking lot would be empty. She'd come home smelling like perfume that wasn't hers. Different, floral, not the scent she always wore. And still she kept laughing, brushing off my question. But the mistake, the fatal mistake, was her voice memos. See, she used her phone to record little notes to herself, grocery lists, reminders, even random thoughts. I knew that about her. What I didn't know was that she'd started recording more than lists. One night she left her phone charging in the kitchen, while she ran to the store. It buzzed, a new memo. Curiosity got the better of me, and I pressed play, and that's when I heard it. Her voice, soft, giddy, whispering things I hadn't heard from her in years. Not to me, to him, laughing about how I'd never find out, how I was too busy, too trusting, how she felt alive again with him. I stood there frozen, phone in my hand, the refrigerator humming in the silence. My hands shook, my chest tightened, and then something inside me snapped into focus. She thought I'd never find out. She thought she was smarter than me, that I'd just keep playing the role of the blind husband. No, if she wanted to laugh at me in secret, then I'd make sure her laughter echoed somewhere she'd never forget. But first, I didn't confront her. Not right away, because rage is messy. But patience, that's where the real power is. I started collecting, quietly, methodically, every memo, every whispered confession, every giggle that wasn't meant for my ears. I saved them all. I didn't just save them, I catalogued them. Dates, times, context. It became a library of betrayal, her voice telling on herself in her own words. The more I listened, the more I realized how deep it went. It wasn't just physical, it was emotional. She told him things she used to tell me in the early years. Secrets, dreams. She gave him the parts of her that I thought were ours alone. And that hurt more than anything. But you know what else I noticed? Patterns. They met on Wednesdays and Fridays, always at the same hotel on the edge of town. Always at 7, always with the same routine. She'd record a little memo after gushing like a teenager, mocking me like I was some joke. And that's when the idea started forming. At first it was just a thought I pushed aside because it seemed too wild, too cruel. But the more I listened to her laugh, the more it grew. She thought she could laugh at me in secret. What if her laughter wasn't secret anymore? What if everyone heard it? What if the mask she wore in public, the devoted wife, the sweet church-going woman, was ripped away in the one place she cared most about, her image, our church? Now, let me be clear, I didn't make this decision lightly. Church wasn't just a building for us. It was community, family. She sang in the choir, volunteered at events, made sure everyone saw her as the perfect wife. And me. I was always her husband, the guy lucky enough to have her. They admired her, trusted her, put her on a pedestal. She basked in it. And that pedestal made her feel invincible. But what happens when you knock over a pedestal? Everyone sees the cracks. So I started planning. I talked to the sound guy, an old friend who ran the speakers every Sunday. Told him I had a special audio I wanted to play at the next fellowship night. Something meaningful. He didn't ask questions. Why would he? I'd been part of that church for years. Same as her. He just handed me the aux cable and said, let me know when. The night came faster than I expected. The hall was full, families chatting, kids running around, coffee cups clinking. She was in her element, laughing with friends, smiling like butter wouldn't melt in her mouth. She didn't know I had her whole secret life tucked in my pocket, ready to play at the press of a button. I waited. Patience again. Let her bask in the glow of her image a little longer. Let her laugh and hug and act like the world revolved around her. And then, when the chatter lulled and people were settling down, I stood up. Before we start, I said, my voice calm but carrying across the room, I want to share something. She turned to me, curious, maybe even proud. She had no idea. I pulled out my phone, connected it to the system, and pressed play. Her voice filled the room. Not her choir voice, not her sweet church voice. Her private voice, giggling, breathless, whispering, he'll never find out. He's so clueless. God, if he only knew what we did last night. The room went dead silent. Forks froze halfway to mouths. Eyes widened. People glanced from me to her, to the speakers, back to her. And her face. Oh, her face. She went pale, then red, then pale again, her hand flying to her mouth, as if she could shove the words back in. I let the memo play, just long enough for the laughter to echo, long enough for everyone to hear her call me pathetic, and him everything I wanted. Then I stopped it. The silence that followed was heavier than any sermon. She stammered, tried to speak, but no words came. People were whispering now, staring, the pedestal crumbling in real time. I didn't yell. I didn't need to. I just looked at her, straight in the eyes, and said, you laughed that I'd never find out. Now everyone knows. And then I walked out. That was just the beginning, because if she thought public shame was the end of it, she hadn't seen anything yet. When I walked out of that hall, I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I could feel the weight of every eye shifting from me to her, the whispers starting, the questions forming. The sound of her laughter mocking me, mocking us, still hung in the air behind me. I knew those words would replay in the heads of everyone there long after the speakers went silent. I sat in my truck for a while, hands gripping the wheel, staring at the steering column. My heart was racing, not from nerves but from the rush of finally turning the tables. For months, I'd been the fool in her story. The clueless husband, the man she thought she could laugh about in secret. Not anymore. Now everyone had heard her with their own ears. No more masks, no more pretending. The truth was out, and it wasn't me who said it. It was her own voice. When she finally came home that night, it was late. I didn't move from the armchair in the living room. She opened the door, shoulders slumped, eyes red, makeup smudged. She looked like someone who'd been in a car accident, dazed, broken, stripped of her composure. How could you, she whispered, her voice cracking. I tilted my head. Funny, that's my line. You embarrassed me, she said, a trace of anger seeping through her shame. In front of everyone. My parents, my friends, the pastor, everyone. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. You embarrassed yourself. I didn't put those words in your mouth. I didn't make you laugh about me like I was some joke. That was you. All I did was press play. She covered her face, muffled sobs breaking through her fingers. For the first time I didn't feel an ounce of sympathy. I'd wasted enough of that already. The days that followed were brutal for her. At church, people avoided her. Whispers followed wherever she went. The choir director asked her to take a break. Friends she thought would defend her stopped answering calls. Her pedestal was rubble, and she was choking on the dust. She tried to salvage things at home, begging, bargaining, promises, spilling out like coins from a broken jar. We can fix this. We can start fresh. It was a mistake, but every time she opened her mouth, I remembered her laughing into that microphone, saying I'd never find out, mocking me with him, like I was some clueless child. One night she grabbed my hand across the dinner table, her eyes swollen from crying. Please, don't do this. We've built a life together. We can't just throw it away. I pulled my hand back slowly. You threw it away the second you pressed record. That silence cut deeper than any argument. And then came the side guy. He texted me. I don't know how he thought that would go. Maybe he wanted to defend himself. Maybe he thought he could intimidate me. You didn't have to do that. His message read, "You ruined her reputation. Be a man. Leave me out of this." I laughed out loud. This from the guy who snuck around in the dark, whispering into voice memos like a teenager, thinking no one would ever hear. I didn't even reply. I didn't need to. His silence afterward told me he got the message. But his life didn't stay quiet. Word spreads fast in small communities. His wife, yes, wife, the one he was about to leave, got wind of it. My little church stunt had been the spark. She reached out to me, polite but firm, wanting copies of the memos. I gave them to her. Why wouldn't I? She deserved the truth as much as I did. Last I heard, she filed for divorce, took the kids, and drained his accounts. As for my wife, the unraveling was slow and painful. Every corner she turned, another consequence waited. Her parents stopped coming by. Her job became unbearable once co-workers started whispering. Even grocery shopping turned into a gauntlet of stares. And through it all, she blamed me. "You could have ended it quietly," she snapped one night, voice hoarse. "You could have left with dignity, but you wanted to humiliate me." I shook my head. No. I wanted the truth. Humiliation was just the cost of living a double life. You mocked me, made me think I was insane for suspecting anything, and then you laughed about it. Like betrayal was entertainment. If you didn't want to be humiliated, you should have kept your vows. We slept in separate rooms after that. The house felt like a museum, cold, echoing, full of memories that didn't mean anything anymore. I started spending nights at a friend's place, just to get away from the suffocating air. I never moved out, not yet, because there were still moves to make. Amanda, the lawyer I'd spoken to before, was ready. The memos weren't just social embarrassment. They were legal gold, proof of infidelity, proof of deceit. When the papers were drafted and delivered, she didn't even try to fight. She couldn't. The evidence was her own laughter, her own words. The divorce was cleaner than I expected. I kept the house, the savings, most of what mattered. She walked away with little more than the clothes she packed in suitcases, her once perfect image in tatters. She moved into a small apartment on the other side of town, alone, her phone buzzing less and less as friends drifted away. The last conversation we had was quiet. She showed up at the house to pick up the last of her things, stood in the doorway clutching a box, her eyes hollow. "You destroyed me," she said softly. I shook my head. "No, you destroyed yourself. I just turned the volume up so everyone could hear it." She didn't reply. She just walked away, and I let her. It's been months now, and sometimes people still ask me if I regret what I did. If I regret airing our dirty laundry in front of the whole church. I tell them no. Because the truth is, she laughed that I'd never find out. She made a joke out of me, out of us, out of everything we built. And if she thought she could keep laughing in the dark while I stumbled around blind, she was wrong. The sound of her laughter still echoes in my head sometimes, but now it doesn't cut the same way. Now it reminds me that I wasn't crazy, that my gut was right, that her mask was never real. And the best part, every time she sets foot back in that church, every time she walks past those speakers, she'll hear it too. Not literally, the recording's gone now, but in her mind that giggle, that whisper, that mockery, she'll never escape it. Because she laughed that I'd never find out, and I made sure she'll never forget that I did.